welcome, and thank you for tuning into the fourth episode of the Political Inaccuracy Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Sullivan. Joining me here today are Deaglan, DiMurro.
As always,
and Connor DiGiacomo, back from episode 2.
Welcome back, Connor.
Now we also have another guest with us today. He is not actually presently with us right now, but he is calling in via Skype, and he is John Burke. John, thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Not a problem at all. So
great to see Big Burke back in action.
Absolutely.
Big John. All right.
Yeah. So in case you guys have not seen our episode last week, we had a rather lengthy discussion on space travel and the values of space travel and what we're doing to our world and whether or not we're going to get to that point eventually where we have to leave Earth, and if we do, how do we do it? Deaglan, we left off with that last week. We spent, I believe, the entire episode on it. So
yes,
any additional thoughts on that we didn't expound upon last week?
Yes. So I guess here is where we're going to start, and here's basically where we're going to try to have this episode go. This one, hopefully, we're going to get a little more into the philosophy behind this. This is what I personally tend to find the most exciting. And what I'd like to do here is what we're going to try to think about is if we could, or if we had to, in the event we were talking about last week, if we do need to leave the Earth for whatever reason, something bad happens, or if we need to send a small team of people to leave the Earth for whatever reason, whenever they get where they're going to need to try to restart society.
Yeah.
How exactly are we going to go about that? Now, in just a moment, I'm going to look up. I actually, if you saw episode 2, I put a quick question at the beginning of it and left it open for responses. I'm quickly going to go look back on that, and I'll read exactly what it is in just a second, but you guys feel free to throw in something real quick.
Yeah, Connor, any thoughts on that in terms of restarting society or anything like that?
Right, because you weren't.
Yeah,
you
I'll
weren't
let
with
you
us
start,
last
'cause
week.
Yeah, I wasn't here last week, but there has to be a true thought when we're going to these places that you're making a sacrifice for mankind. So that first off, you'd have to have, very, very democratic values on this new world or planet and whatnot. And I don't know how many people you would necessarily need to have to start a new society in terms of populating whatever place you decide to go to. So at first there would need to be a large amount of people, I would assume, going to this place. There need to be common values shared by these people. And another thing is, who are you sending there? Is what I would think, at least. I mean, obviously you'd send scientists, you'd send people, who specialize in agriculture, things like that. But who else is going on the trip?
Well, how about this? For the sake of this discussion, we'll say, because society is diverse, so we'll say diverse. Just assume it was volunteers. Sure, a few scientists and a few engineers, whatever, something along those lines, of course. Just for the sake of the mission, in order to make sure it all goes successfully, and also to record data, findings, that sort of thing. But then for the sake of the bulk of the group, and maybe we want to start it off at just an even number, like 100 people. Maybe, how about even 1,000 people?
Well, we can classify those people, and they fall into the class of crazy enough to do it.
Right.
Which,
Yeah, but again, just for the sake of this, we'll say relatively diverse, just all people who volunteered. And real quick, I'll just say, I pulled this up. The question I asked last week, and feel free to answer it. Absolutely, you can answer it in this episode as well, now that you hear what we have to say on this. We'd love to hear just any further answers you have. The question I posed was, if you were to be in command of a mission to colonize a planet abroad, whether leading the team or being in command from Earth, what would you do first? Upon arrival at your destination, what would be your first course of action? How do you establish a stable community? And we have, as of the moment, 2 responses to that. So the first one I'll read is from Andrew Pinto-Shaw. Thank you for the response. And he says that his first command would be to plant an American flag because go America. And then he says, how do I create a successful society? Excuse me. A successful society. He says he would send whole families as opposed to individuals. That's what he had to say.
Interesting.
Yes. And then the other one comes from John Burke. Thank you, John.
That's me.
That's
Thank
John
you, John,
Burke.
for the reply. And I'll just read this. You say, if I was trying to lead a group to colonize a planet, I would already have the outlines planned beforehand, and everyone would generally know what their job is. Now that list would look like this. 1. Set up a shelter. 2. Hunt and find firewood. 3. Mark the areas you find with tape or paint so you can get back home easily. 4. Make sure there is a shelter, fire, food, and then go secure the area around and search for natives. First, try to be diplomatic. If they are hostile, then we need to know what we are up against before we can fight back. And then you reference Arrival in that mentioning.
Yeah, have you
so
guys seen Arrival?
I have not.
I have not either. But if you
no.
want to give a little description of that.
No, I don't think any of us here have. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's a movie, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it's a movie. I'd rather not say anything about it besides aliens land on Earth and top scientists and people who are trying to understand this alien language are like the main characters in the movie. So it's very much they make the main characters the diplomatic people trying to actually talk to these aliens instead of a movie about, trying to fight aliens
murdering the
attacking
aliens.
Earth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a
It's
really
very,
interesting concept.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. All right.
I'll have
Well,
to go see that.
I will ask you, because you commented, I'll just take the first little bit here to ask you, what is the derivative of this plan? I mean, of course, you have some very basic things, right?
Oh,
Firewood,
yeah.
shelter, make sure you can live. But then you quite specifically mention, what to do, and that's a fair part of your answer, is what to do in the event you find someone. So, like, what is that thought process? I guess I'm asking, what is that thought process there? Do you see that as being one of the most important things to do to establish what happens if you make contact with other life?
I kind of figured it like this. Going to an alien planet that is, has a similar environment to Earth's will probably have some sort of native culture living there. And I based what my plan would be based on how people who travel, like when people were discovering new continents and new countries, how they would first try to interact with the natives living there. For instance, the way Europeans who traveled to America would try to make relations with Native Americans, not sharing a similar culture, not sharing a similar language. First you would want to make some sort of peaceful, have some sort of peaceful thing set up with them, talk to them, learn about their cultures, teach them new things. Because if you're going to be living on their planet, you're going to want to know how they live on it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I
That's
think
right.
that's Guys,
But-
you want to discuss that, Connor?
Yeah, the
go
only
for it.
thing I have to point out about that, John, is that the Europeans didn't take such a diplomatic approach
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I based it more on what I would hope they would have done.
What they should have done. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So would it be a combination of 21st century customs and these natives customs? I mean, how would the society eventually evolve? Like, what do you think would be dominant?
Well, you would want to learn from them how they find their food and how they find their water and everything, how they interact with other species on their planet. Maybe there's more than just one species. There should be. And if there is some single dominant species like there is humans on Earth, you would want to interact with them the same level that humans interact with each other on our Earth, learning new things from them and how they survive, because you're going to want to know how to survive, and no one's going to know how to survive on their planet better than the natives of it.
Right.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. You know, if you go to another planet and you encounter natives there, it's probably best to learn from them, right? I think
Right.
just not just hunting food, but general like culture things,
Right.
other things in society. I think that's better. Like,
And
if
that's-
aliens came to Earth, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna actually do that, but you know what I mean?
Right, and I mean, what you had brought up about the European explorers going to the Americas, and I guess I think I see where you're trying to make that connection. Yeah, not so much in the fact that they were all that friendly, but at least at first, some of the explorers, particularly more in North America, not so much the Spanish conquistadors. They didn't really want to make any peace at all. But some of the more northern explorers did. You hear a lot of the stories about them having to learn from the Native Americans how to farm in America because it was so different from farming in Europe. They had all sorts of different crops that they had never seen. They had to learn how to hunt animals that they'd never seen before. So it was a totally different experience. And if they didn't have relations like they did, at least at first, with the Native Americans before they started trying to steal their land and really all of the European greed started making its way to the Americas. At least at first, you had a great sense of cooperation where it was, we'll tell you everything we know as more educated, more scientific peoples from the European world, but you tell us everything that you know about farming and agriculture in your world.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe you'll get to this alien planet and they might be super technologically advanced where
That's true.
they might be a species that might live in like consciousness. They might not have physical form, so they might not have a need for food.
Well, that gets way.
Yo.
Wow, that's a whole
We
different-
just jumped 17 levels.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, I'll ask about this too, because we've been talking about, what happens if you encounter life. We talk about if it's friendly. Well, what if it's not? What if it's hostile? And here's where I'm going with this. If they attack you first, does that give you the right to attack back? Because yes, they attacked you first, they prompted it, yada yada yada. However, you might totally, in their eyes, be seen as a foreign invader, as an intruder. Don't they have the right to try to kick you off their planet? Do they? Well, I guess I shouldn't say don't they, because that's a leading question, but do they is really the question.
But the idea is, how will you communicate with them that you are not intending to be violent?
Well, I guess as long as you don't demonstrate violence. So if you come down and you start minding your own business, they don't know, per se, that you're not going to be violent in the future. But if you don't attack them first, and then they attack you, does that give you a right to say, look, we're on the moral side here because they attacked us
It's
first,
basically
we're
like
defending
being an
ourselves?
illegal immigrant on planet X. And
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So,
In a perfect world, you wouldn't fight back. You'd find a way to explain your presence there and the reason for leaving your own planet. And then, if there's
what if you can't, though?
What if you can't?
What if you can't communicate?
I would just be defensive. I wouldn't necessarily launch an attack.
But you would still stand your ground. You wouldn't leave.
No.
You're there. You're staying.
Yes.
Yeah, I tend to agree with the whole idea of staying because humans are kind of fight or flight type people. I mean, that's kind of our main
Right.
instincts as human beings, right? So, but if we're gonna go all the way up to the planet, we might as well stay.
Might as well stay.
You know,
not
like-
waste the mission.
Yeah, look, I mean, if we get that would be so weak if we got attacked and we were just like, okay, bye.
Right. Well,
That would be kind of a waste of time. Although you have to foster diplomatic relations.
Right. Well,
Right.
I mean, I guess on a moral standpoint, and also here's a question too. When we tend to think morals, we really only tend to think human beings. Sometimes you apply it to animals like dogs, cats, and some people now are starting to get more of the view for all of nature. Right. Veganism is becoming more and more a thing where people are saying, no, I don't want to eat any sort of food product that has to do with the harming or the captivity of animals, yada, yada, yada. But does morality really apply to things that aren't human? So, from a moral standpoint, I would at least think that if you go to someone else's planet, they obviously don't want you there, you ought to leave. From a moral standpoint, you're invading, they don't want you, you got to leave them. That's their planet, that's their right. But do morals apply to them? Should we look at it from a moral perspective?
I think we have to consider it, but like as Jimmy said, there needs to be some sort of effort towards a diplomatic solution to explain the dire need to go on this mission, right? Because this mission wouldn't take place unless there was a need for it to take place.
And I don't disagree, but again, suppose we can't.
All right, but the real question is, would these people we're invading have morals? Right, because if we found a way to communicate with them, all right, and we were able to explain the reason for our presence, what are their morals if they refuse us?
That's a phenomenal question.
That is a good question.
I mean, how about that? Do you think that there's possibility that other life, either that we don't know of or maybe that we do know of, has morals? Do you think animals that aren't human have morals?
Yes, they're primitive, but in some way, shape, or form, they
you
have
think they at least do have a moral compass?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that.
So then, most likely,
animals do have moral compasses because there are plenty of animals that obviously wouldn't eat another one of their own kind, especially like a kin or something like that. So there's definitely some sort of morality established in probably every animal.
Well, I guess what I should ask, do you think that's like a human kind of morality? I guess morality, yes. Is it a moral compass that's making them do that? Or is it a morality established as through the likes of Darwinism? That they're not doing it because morally, right, their goal as a species is to continue survival of the fittest, and if they eat themselves, they eat people, or not people, if they eat members of their own pack, if they eat their children, their offspring, then they're depriving from the survival of the fittest-esque, nature of their species. So do you think this is actually like a moral compass at work there, or is that just like instinct, a moral instinct, I should say?
Well, when I mentioned primitiveness, I would think it would lean towards the idea of social Darwinism. Absolutely.
So like again, a moral instinct as opposed to a moral compass.
Right. I don't think they believe, oh, wow, look at that poor I don't think a tiger says, oh, look at that baby pig, I'm going to leave him alone. Or look at that baby cub, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. Oh, cub's a bear, never mind. A kitten or whatever you call,
baby lion,
a tiger.
That might be a cub.
I'm on it.
Isn't it a tiger? I think it's a tiger cub.
Might be kitten. Tiger cub sounds like something. I don't know if that's a baby.
Yeah, I think from that standpoint they would know not to harm
one of their own kin.
Right.
Or one of their own species. But if it's another species, then it's all game.
Right, and I don't know if there's a moral. I don't know if there's morals between. Certain animals only attack adult prey.
Is that true?
There are, I believe so. Yeah, I believe there's very few animals that actually. I mean, you're not gonna want to eat an infant. Let's say a cheetah that's not gonna want to eat an infant wildebeest because maybe there's not enough value.
Right. Well, I mean,
killing that
if you can't find anything else to eat.
Yeah,
then,
that's a good point.
Is it that they don't do it because it's not worth their time because they could kill an adult wildebeest and get a lot more meat out of it and feed their whole family, or do they do it because they actually realize, look, that's a child in a sense. That is a baby form of that animal. We don't do that.
Yeah, but I think Connor made a great point. He said you talked about social Darwinism, survival of the fittest. That's absolutely true. I think with survival of the fittest, they're going to get to a point where they say, yeah, I know it's an infant. I know it's however years old. I know it's small. I have to survive, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to survive. Now, humans don't necessarily have to do that anymore because we're not back in, the old days of hunter-gathering or whatever, where we actually have to shoot other animals to get our food. We don't necessarily have to do that anymore. But I think with animals, they're going to get to a point where it's just, okay, if I don't kill this cub or whatever it was you said, and if I don't eat it, I am going to die. And I think their instincts are going to say, yeah, I shouldn't, but at the end of the day, they have to. Right? I mean,
right.
I would have to think that's the case, right?
What my question is though, is do they even have an actual like a moral compass kind of thing telling them don't eat it, it's a baby, or is it just purely the fact that why eat it when I could attack a full-size one and get more meat? Is it purely survivalist instinct, or is there actually a moral compass at work in animals?
Well, don't humans have essentially the same thing?
Well,
right,
yeah, well, that's what we're saying. Is there, because humans have a moral compass. That I agreed to. My question is, are we the only ones with a moral compass? A lot of people say humans are the only ones.
Connor just wants to jump in.
I mean,
here
you look at different animals. What are these stories they could see on the news and things like that? Like different species seeing abandoned infants of another species and then nurturing that infant. Things like that. You've seen that, right? Where
yeah.
like
well, I mean, there was I know one. People have brought this up with the whole Harambe epidemic that happened.
He was just a gorilla.
Last year. Well,
I'm just putting that out
rest
there.
in peace.
Right.
Don't edit that out. He was just a gorilla.
He was just a gorilla. That's it, folks. Nothing more. Just a
Don't
gorilla.
edit that part out. I have feelings for him.
I'm sorry.
John, what are we ever gonna do?
Right. So in that sense, I don't know if certain animals or the entire animal kingdom would have a moral compass, but in those situations, animals absolutely have a moral compass.
Right. Well, again, I don't know if it's almost like a survivalist instinct kind of thing, not necessarily morals, but they look at it as a child. I don't know. It's confusing. It's like the sort of thing where I don't know if you know this, but if a duck egg hatches, and you're the first thing it sees, it will follow you around because it thinks that you are its parent in a sense.
Yeah.
Now I don't know per se, like, is that like, you know, a sort of moral thing, like, oh look, you human, you were overwatching my egg, so you must care for me or appreciate me, thus I will follow you. Or is it like, I'm a baby duck, I need something to follow. Bam, you're the first thing I see, following you. You know, that's what I mean. Is it just purely instinct? And I guess what you bring up is a good point, because then you have to question. That doesn't really seem like it would just be pure instinct, because if it was, they would just leave, you know, the abandoned animal to die, or they'd kill it and eat it themselves.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. You were talking about the example with the duck when the egg cracks and they kind of just follow whoever because they see it as an example. I view that as like our relationship with our parents, where we see what our parents do, we see how they behave, and then we kind of act off that. A lot of people have said, you know, people are a lot like their parents when they grow up and they come up with those formative values. It's kind of the same thing, although ducks, animals like that don't have that same organization, that same culture in their lives.
Right, and I'm not disagreeing that this happens in humans, but again, my question is humans have this? Do other animals? Like a lot of people say
that's a good question.
That other animals don't have emotions, that humans are the only ones who feel emotions, and then people will make arguments, oh no, there's evidence that dogs feel emotion because if you're sad, they're sad, and I tend to agree with that the likes of dogs can feel emotion.
I saw a very happy dog the other day.
Yeah, I mean, my dog, when she was alive, I mean, she used to, like, when she would see, like, stuff going on out the window, she would be like, animals, I think, have emotions. Well, I mean, at least some of them, right?
I mean, and there are people and scientists who will argue that they don't. I personally believe, if anything, I would say they do, but there's an argument out there that they don't, that we can't actually prove it, is, I guess, the point.
Okay.
And so
that's interesting.
Right. Like,
that's
so
interesting.
Do animals have a moral compass? And the whole reason that I bring this up, right, talking about if we go somewhere, is it likely that if there were a dominant species on some other planet, assuming that they were capable, that they were as complex as humans, not exactly humans, they could be very different, but as complex in the sense that they were capable of inventing machinery, that they were capable of communicating through language, and they were just capable of more complex things that we don't attribute to what we call animals. Does that mean that they then also have to have a moral compass? Just because you have a language and just because you can invent technology, does that mean you have to have a moral compass as well?
That's a really, really good question. I'm not exactly sure on that one. I know, John, you said you saw a happy dog the other day, etc. So, John, I don't know. Did you want to answer that one first?
Did that dog have a moral
I know.
compass?
Well, no, but, in general, it's kind of the question.
What do you
Deaglan
think,
asked.
John? What do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I think with most animals, we don't see a lot of animals as intelligent because they can't communicate with us the way we communicate with each other.
Right.
So the fact that most animals lack the mental capacity for communication, we tend to believe they lack the mental capacity for compassion and morality. But it's very true. You'll see compassion come from dogs, and like you can train a dog to have more compassion, but you'll also see too, certain dog breeds are they can be like easier to train to have more compassion.
Right.
So like something is instilled in them at birth genetically to just be friendlier and be nicer and just things like that. And that's a question too, if morality is something learned or if it's something that is found genetically throughout all nature out there.
That's a great question. I would say, if anything, it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
That you need to have a capacity for it, like you said. I think it's a great word. Is that some animals have a capacity for morality, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will. So, for example, in humans, I would say, all humans, relatively speaking, have very, very, very similar genes. Just tiny sets of genes that set each individual human apart.
More or less, yeah.
Right.
The appearance parts.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, any type of human has totally different sets of morality, right?
Yeah.
And so that bit, I think, is learned or comes through experience. But the capacity to have morals is probably something that you do need to be born with genetically, like a tree, something from like the plant kingdom, right?
Yeah.
They're living beings. They are organisms. Do they have emotions though? Does a tree have emotions? Does a tree have morality behind it? Like, just because it's living, is it? I guess the question is the line drawn at Animalia? Is it only animals that have a possibility for it, or is it all living things? Can an amoeba somehow have the capacity to have morals? It doesn't have a brain. Neither does a tree. But where is this stuff derived from? Is it derived from a brain, or is it something deeper within?
I think you just answered your own question. I don't think that it would have any moral capacity due to its lack of a brain or some sort of organ that has that function in the human or animal body. I think right there you've answered your own question.
Yeah, I think.
So, but you think it's definitely at least an organ-based thing, whether it be the brain or some other organ.
Right. I think
probably the brain.
Yeah.
I think due to the experiences that one would have, they would be transmitted through the brain of that animal or that person, thus giving them a set of morals and whatnot. So I don't think the tree would have A, that kind of experiences, and B, that brain to process such experiences.
And frankly, I'm not 100% sure how to answer your question. It was a really good question, but that's something that we need to look into more. Scientists,
right? That
etc.
I think we should
That's
try
something,
to figure out.
That's something, whether it's organ based, like you said, or whatnot. How they have those experiences, how they have those emotions. That's something we need to look into. Honestly, right now, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's kind of like a case-by-case basis type thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because just to progress this ever so slightly further, you'd think to some extent trees or the likes of plants at least have a kind of memory. It's a very analog memory. I'll use this sort of analogy just to maybe make a little more sense. I will say that stuff like humans and animals have a very digital kind of memory. We can actually store something, and we can recall on it if we need to. We could tell it to somebody else, and then they could take it as a part of their memory. But I think trees, in a sense, and all living things, have a sort of analog kind of memory in the form of Darwinism, right? Because if a certain tree does not grow well in a specific area, then through its genes, it will pass down something to its seeds or however it does it, in order to make the seeds more likely, however it is, to end up in an area where it can grow better. Or if a certain tree...
A seed doesn't necessarily have control over
where it goes.
it's
Yeah, no,
planted.
I know that's kind of a bad thing to say. But if a specific tree has a very large susceptibility to like a certain caterpillar or something like that, then it can have eventually down the line through adaptation, it can grow some sort of like poison on it or something like that will kill off that caterpillar to help save it. And that's adaptation. But if you think about it, it's almost in a way some kind of a memory, because it is passing it down through the generation, the memory that this caterpillar equals bad, this poison equals kills caterpillar equals survival.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if something like a tree has a capacity, even if it's very analog, as I said, I'll put it, even if it's a very analog capacity to carry and distribute memory, then could it have a sort of analog capacity of morality, almost in a sense? And again, not like digital in the sense that we have, but an analog sense of morality.
I think the way you put that, it's at least possible. Like it's possible if you're using that analogy that a tree could have like that analog memory, but they wouldn't actually be able to like store.
No, they can't, and they can't recall on. You can't have a tree. You can't ask a tree a question and have it give you an answer.
Like how hard did you go during that hurricane the other night?
Right.
That.
No, you can't.
You can't do that. Yeah.
But genetically, it has an analog sort of a memory to it.
Yeah.
And so, could a tree say to itself, well, if I do this particular thing with my roots, I'll kill all the flowers nearby me. I will take up all the nutrients. I'll kill all the flowers. And so could a tree, in an analog kind of sense, work whatever that is out of its genes to allow the flowers to live? And again, I don't know if this is a thing we can study, but I'd be very interested to know if that's possible. If you can have an analog memory passed down through genes, can you have an analog morality? Or anything like that? Maybe not a morality per se, but...
I'm not 100% sure, like if something like memory and something like morality really correlate evenly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like it's, we all have digital memories. We can store stuff. But the thing is, we could also learn from it. We have digital moralities. We can, change ourselves based on past experiences, etc. Something like a tree, I don't see how something like that, which is, a stationary object, hypothetically, you would think, right? I mean,
Right.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I something like that. I don't know if a tree at least has on an analog level a memory. I don't know if it necessarily has that same analog level of morality, because I'm not necessarily sure that there's a correlation
even
between the two.
remotely possible.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
No, I get fully what you're saying. And
It's
this
an
is-
interesting point, because I never thought of that like previously.
Yeah.
But I'm a little skeptical of the correlation between having a memory and on the analog level too, where you're not necessarily able to store
Right.
that much
It's
information.
only passed down.
Yeah, and so you're not going to really learn from those experiences. So I don't necessarily. I'm skeptical of the idea that it would have an analog.
No, and
morality.
I'm not
That's
saying...
just me.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying I really think it would either. Again, I can't wrap my head around how it does, but then again, I can't really wrap my head around how it even has an analog memory, how it can pass stuff like that down. So, it's just a purely hypothetical thing. Like, is it
absolutely
maybe possible that it could possibly work like that too? And so, then along with this, right, is then if we were to go to this alien planet, what guarantees that they'll have a morality? Now, assuming they're animals, I think we've all pretty much come to the agreement that most animals, at least, have a morality, some kind of a morality.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that.
Right. So then, these aliens, if we were to go land on their planet and kind of set up shop, and to them it might seem like we're invading, if they did have a morality, and I guess if we even, let's say then now, because we've talked about if we can't communicate with them, if we can communicate with them, They have a sense of morality about them. How do you explain this situation? We're from another planet that we had to leave because the people on our planet are so bad that we destroyed it. We started chopping down all the nature. We started spewing poison into the air. We had wars. We fought each other, killed each other, bombed parts of the planet so bad that we could never go back there for millions of years. We'd like to now stay on your planet. How do you explain that?
Well, I mean,
What if,
I'll let John go.
Yeah, John will go, then
what
Connor.
What if we had sort of like a Noah's Ark type of thing where we didn't just bring humans, we brought some other species which we generally interact positively with. Like, let's say we brought some dogs with us, and we showed the aliens how we show compassion to other creatures, and that can kind of show them that, oh, we are very peaceful. Something bad happened, and we're here now, but we have this capacity to do good. We're wondering if you also shared a similar capacity with maybe other species on your planet, if you could share that similar capacity to us.
All right. First off, how are we getting nature to space? How are we putting different species of fish, I'm assuming, dogs, cats? How is that all going to work?
Just assuming, we talked about this last week,
Yeah.
if it's possible, if it's something we could do or should do. Assuming it is possible, assuming we can get there.
Assuming it's possible, we could do that, but
Well,
if
it's not necessarily a matter of transporting the trees up into space. We would like plant
seeds
Yeah,
or
it's
or
plant
yeah,
seeds,
if,
yeah.
I mean,
Right.
if fish, I guess we could take a fish tank. I don't know.
Yeah.
we could do what we those things, but them as assuming they're intelligent beings, they could just see that as a scam. I mean, you just explained to us the horrors of your planet, all caused by greedy people like you. Why are you showing me the 25 things you did right? Why does that give me reason to believe you're not going to screw up my planet? I mean, you have to explain to them that we are the people who realized the mistake, and we have all these different credentials, and we'd like to create a sustainable environment for the two groups of people here. I think that's what you tell them.
Well, now, inversely, if some alien planet, alien species, in whatever size of an amount of them, landed on this planet and said, look, we went to war with each other, we killed each other almost all off, nuclear war, whatever it may be. We totally destroyed our planet. We killed most of our population. We need a new place to live. We'd like to join you here. This planet is, without a doubt, the most suitable thing that we have found for our species to continue to exist. Can we join you?
Right, but the only thing is,
Do we tell them yes?
Aren't we trying to leave? Aren't we
Well,
trying to leave?
assuming it's inversely, if we're not trying to leave, if we're happy on our planet and somebody else comes to us,
So magically,
what would
all the
you do?
climate change issues just disappear?
assuming just for
Yeah. So
just
if
for
our planet is so livable,
hypothetically,
Yeah.
yeah. Just inversely, just so
we've
we
got a
can kinda
perfect
see,
planet. We're
how
got
would
a
they
normal
feel?
temperature.
I guess is my
yeah.
question.
How
So
would they feel?
if Connor, if the decision was up to you, right, and this alien species comes to your planet and says, look, this is the most suitable planet for our form of life that we have been able to find in the entire universe. We totally destroyed our planet. It is wrecked. It is gone. Most of our population is dead from us killing each other. But we'd like to join you here. We've done some good things. We'd like to show you some of the good things we've done. We hope that we can continue to do these good things in your presence, or with us in your presence, we should say. So, can we stay?
Okay, so
What do you tell them?
First, I think you have to have a conversation with yourself, basically stating, these people are asking us for help. We have to make sure that we uphold the values of a just human being, basically, and not be inhumane. But we also have to tell them, you've made these mistakes, and we've really made no mistakes. So for the time being, not that you're going to have to be subservient to us, but maybe you'd learn from our practices, and over time, not that we'd become equals, I don't think at first you'd necessarily be equals because you're welcoming these people, but you want to keep them from destroying the planet you have, right? Cause
Right. So obviously you're gonna sort of, not to say over police them, but you're gonna watch over.
You're
them,
gonna, yeah.
that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
yeah, that basically. Yeah.
I mean, and it's part of the controversy now. If you have people coming from the Middle East to our country, and there's a large controversy over, well.
I was
in
so
the Middle
ready
East,
to make that exact point.
Yeah. In the Middle
Yeah.
East, there's a lot of conflict over there, and now you want to come to our country, and you're telling us, look, it can be okay. And now, of course, not all of them are associated with the conflict.
Oh,
Some
no,
of them
no,
are
no.
just
Absolutely not.
just on the side. They happen to be casualties of war in that sense, and they need to flee here because they want to try to get away. But some of them are. Some of them were associated with the conflict in some way, and now they say, look, I want to reestablish my life here. Will you let me do it? And obviously, there's a large controversy over that now. We've had the travel bans recently.
Right, there's a large
largely due to that sort of
controversy
thing.
of these groups of people, trying to diminish American society. So I think if that's established and at first, you're going to comply to our ways of life because in fact we are safer than yours, and there's nothing wrong with with having a culture from a past life, let's say, but I don't think that you should just impose certain laws that you've had in the past. Like, for instance, there were people. I may be wrong, but aren't there people in the United States trying to institute Sharia law?
I'm sure they're out there. I'm gonna get on that.
I'm sure there are
There
some
are
people.
plenty-
I don't know,
yeah.
there are people in the United States still trying to institute communism, still trying
There's
to
still,
convince
there
our
are
government
still
to
people
turn
trying
communist.
to. There are still a lot of members of the KKK. in
Oh
the
yeah,
United
we still have
States.
members of the KKK in the United States. We still have some people who claim themselves fascists in this country. So yeah, there are some people. I don't know if it's really viewed as like a legitimate thing, you know what I mean, or if it's just some small radical group that it is what it is. It's just radical.
Right. I think that would have to be something you would prevent, right? The overtaking of that culture on the culture they're being welcomed by. I think that's something that Earth and humans would have to, consider when going to another planet. Is we are guests. We cannot overtake, because human instinct
Right.
is, become acquaintances with these people and then eventually,
And then use them,
overtake
overtake them. Yeah.
Right. So if people are coming to the United States for a better life, that isn't the same. It's essentially the reason we have a better life is because of X, Y, and Z, and you need to do X, Y, and Z kind of thing.
Yeah, interesting. I
Right.
think you made a whole bunch of good points there.
Well, John, now you said you were going to bring up the whole thing that I did with immigration, the Middle East. Is there anything that I didn't really hit on that you want to?
Or any of us really didn't hit on?
Yeah, with that analogy.
It seems like our current president isn't very fond of illegal aliens. And
I think
don't
that's a
think
fair
he-
statement.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be very fond of actual aliens
Yeah,
coming.
of genuine aliens. Right.
Yeah. I don't know if
No.
he would
Well,
ban them, or I don't know how that. No, I'm not sure how that would work. But if they come into our country,
no more immigration from the Andromeda
It's-
galaxy.
yeah, but
it's not an ET ban. It's just a space travel ban.
It's just-
please.
yes.
it's extreme vetting of people from ET.
Yes. We need to increase our space exports before we can allow for any more space imports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's like Connor said before. We're not gonna over police them for every little stupid thing
Right.
that happens, but like we're gonna uphold them if assuming they have that understanding to the laws of the United States.
Exactly.
You
They're not living in their own little embassy where they could do whatever they want. They're living in
Yeah.
our country. They have to follow our rules.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very important point to make just quickly.
Right. And so John, I'll ask you, do you think, now not necessarily that our president would, but do you think he should, or if you were the one to make the call, do you think he should allow actual aliens if they happen to show up and they were pleading, look, we need your help. we need somewhere to stay, what would you say?
Well, that's a very big question because on one hand, you want to help someone, something, this alien, you want to help, you want to reach out and help someone. But on the other hand, you could be setting yourself up for something possible in the future.
It could be the Trojan horse. Yeah.
Yeah, they could do the same exact thing they did to their planet to our planet. And obviously you wouldn't want, alien war to happen on our planet. It's like Transformers actually.
Yeah.
How they came to our planet originally as invaders to steal our energy source. But I don't know. I don't think we should, honestly.
You would say no?
No.
Oh wow. All right. Well,
that's an interesting thought.
To that right then. So if we send an expedition somewhere, where they land, they're capable of communication, they have morality, but for the exact reasons, John, that you would say no to an incoming alien invader, they say no to us. Do we leave, or doesn't that give us the right to say, no, we're staying. If you want us gone, fight us? Because that's kind of what we were saying before, is that if they attacked you, you say, no, we're standing our ground, we're staying here, we fight back. So, now that we've had this discussion, do you think that is what we should do, or maybe do you think we leave? And, for all we know, that could be it. There could be nowhere else anywhere near that this, near this planet that would be suitable for life. So, at that point, whoever went on the expedition has to leave this planet and basically either try to make it back home or just spend, however long they can up in a spaceship until we can either rescue them or they all die. What do we do? Do we fight them? That's, just going over what we just talked about.
On both sides of the story, I guess, you could say that if whoever's going to the new planet, or whoever is the planet that's being invaded, the natives to that planet,
right?
They should at least tell them, if they do say no, you should also give them some sort of chance to show you that they have compassion and that they have learned from their mistakes and that they're ready to live peacefully with a new species on a new planet. And, give them the courtesy to allow them to do that, and also be kind enough to show this new planet that you're invading, that you're not actually invading them, that you're there to help them. I feel like if you're there to help, that maybe that's a pretty convincing. That's convincing them to let you stay, is to show them that you can help them.
Are we there to help, or are we willing to help for our survival? It's two different things.
That's a great question.
That is a great point. Yeah.
Because I think
in
inevitably,
our case, I don't know if we'll have anything to give aliens. We could tell them that we're there to help, but I think in our case, just because of the way we do stuff on Earth, we're gonna want them to have like a resume built up already of what they can do to help us.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And and then all of this kind of gets into as well is you're thinking, well, maybe we can give them technologies or something like that. We can offer that to them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't need that. Maybe they're more advanced than we are.
Yeah, they might be, and maybe there's stuff that we can take when we come back to Earth if we're going up there for a week or 2 weeks or whatever.
When they kick us out.
We can, when we get evicted, we can see what they're doing, and if it's like really advanced stuff, we could
try to bring it back. But
yeah.
But at that point, if we still can't save the planet, then
yeah, like what if Earth became just like a crumbling rock and we go to an alien planet and they say, oh, we have this technology that instantly creates fertile land out of dust and water out of the air and just stuff like that. That would be pretty amazing.
That's kind of a long shot, though, if you ask me.
Yeah.
That would be,
I have to agree with that.
All hypothetical.
Yeah. So I think just kind of like a last sort of thing, kind of to close it up. We had a pretty great conversation here on what is morality and what if people have it, what if people don't have it, is really just the question. This is, and I guess I'll just take an answer from all of you, so you can kind of hear where we stand. In the event that we are there, and also too, John, to me, you say show them that we have compassion. I don't really think that's possible. That you can actually show that you have changed, because there's this whole thing, where people try to say, "Oh, I've changed," and as we all know, people never change, in that light. If somebody screwed you over once, they'll screw you over again, and there's evidence of that throughout history.
I don't know if it's like show them that we have changed, or just show them that we have the ability to change, because it could be something, obviously if it's an emergency situation that we have to leave, it probably happened pretty recently. So we don't have any evidence backing us up showing that, we are changing.
Right.
But we can show them that we have the capacity to change through our capacity to work with them and the capacity to have morality and all the other points we made previously about this.
Right. I mean, I guess, but then again, my last question will be, again, if you do tell them that and then they say no. Really, this is like...
But the thing is, do these aliens or whoever, do they view our qualities as redeeming? Like, the redeeming qualities we have on Earth, are they the same? Are they of the same concept or values on planet? Why?
That's a great question, and I'll just have to assume we don't know. I mean, I would say, at least because we talked, a bit about how animals have compassion. I think they have. Animals, if you do say they have a morality, have it in the same sense that we do. So I guess in that case, you could kind of have a sense that these aliens would have a morality at least similar to our own. But no, maybe not. Maybe they don't share this whole sort of like this customary system of this is polite for us to do, it's compassionate for us to do. It might not be for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And the whole thing with change and compassion, I'm not 100% sure either if aliens are capable of seeing that human compassion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't think I'm not 100% sure if it's a really advanced alien or if it's not. There's a lot of variables there. But if it's kind of a primitive, if we're looking at like primitive aliens, I don't think they're going to have that capacity to see human compassion. But if we're looking at advanced ones, I think they could absolutely see that.
Maybe they could, but
yeah.
Again, even if they, from their own experience, say, no, people don't change. If they tell us no, and this is again kind of like the last point I want to hit on, everybody can give their own answer here. What do? Do we stay and do we fight because this is what we set out to do, and by God, we're doing it, or we're dying trying, Either like that sort of a motive, or do we abide by the rules? Do we leave and do we possibly doom our own race, We could at least try to fight them, try to win, maybe secure a planet for our own future, or do we...
Well, I think that would be a pretty futile idea, because basically we know nothing about this planet. I mean, unless, of course, you pull, like the movie Martian, and suddenly we all become potato farmers. And
that is a great movie.
Yeah, right, but other than that, you've killed every sentient being on this planet. You have nowhere to turn for help or guidance. So I think that if they say no, you have to fight, and I guess you take as mentioned way back earlier in the show, I guess you take what the Europeans did. They beat the natives into submission, forcing them to help the Europeans, right? I think that would be the only viable option, because if the world is in crisis and you're the only hope, you're the mission picked to save the human race, then you have to do everything you can to save the human race.
Save the human race, right.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with parts of what you said. No matter what, if we're going to spend a ton of money, and that would be a ton of money to go up to a different planet, etc.
And we're assuming this is like last hope.
This is like last hope. We better stay and do something, right? I mean,
if it comes down to it.
If we're all doomed like that,
and
if we're in that kind of desperation state and desperate times call for desperate measures, I mean, we got to stay and at least do something. It might not be fight the aliens, but we got to at least stay. If we're not going to fight them, we need to assimilate and form a sort of culture with them so that we can have a better coexistence. But I think we have to do something. I'm not sure what, but I think we have to stay and we have to do something.
Would this be the only planet we would stumble upon? I mean, would you just go around from planet to planet?
Just for the sake of this discussion here, we'll say that this is the only one we could find. That this is quite possibly our only.
Okay, then I think you have to stay and do something.
Do something.
Yeah.
I'll say, no, because that's very difficult. Because if we're saying that these aliens do have quite the morality about them, we know they have a morality pretty similar to our own human morality.
If they have a morality similar to our own, then
Yeah.
there's no reason they would refuse us.
Well,
Simple.
not necessarily. As we just heard, John said himself, and I think you had said this too, that if an alien race came here and they offered it just, or they asked us that, John himself said that he would have to say no, just to protect the human race, just to be sure. And I think
they would have
they might have that same thought that, like, look, we'd love to help you, but really we have to protect ourselves.
Yeah, but the only thing is if we're in a perfect world, right, and there's nothing wrong with our current planet, we would have all of the resources available to stop that race of alien.
We shouldn't say perfect, but a better off.
In a great sense, we would have all of the capabilities to stop any detrimental practices to our way of life.
You would think or hope, but again, I guess the thing is, it's just the unknown. It's just that you don't know. It could be 100, 1,000 years down the line.
Yeah.
Eventually, this race comes to try to either overthrow you or tries to do something bad. And I think, as I said, John had brought up before, that he would have to tell him no. I'll just quickly throw my 2 cents in on this whole thing. If we're there, if these if this race has their own morality about them, and they tell us no, I guess what I would really have to try to do then is I wouldn't want to fight them. I would be literally diplomatic as possible until the last minute, and then if that at that point didn't work, I would at least try to say to them, yes, is there anything that you could then do to help our planet? Do you have any ideas of any technologies that you might be able to use to help save us? Is there anywhere else that you know of in the universe that we could try, that we could go, that we could check? And if they still say no to all of that, then I wouldn't necessarily try to fight them, but the best option might be try to go fugitive on their planet. Just, try to stay under the cover, maybe make it look like you leave, but actually stay.
Yeah.
That sort of a thing, and just try to live there, at least for long enough, until when they do discover you, they can then realize these people are peaceful. They didn't attack us. They just stayed and they minded their own business.
Yeah.
That would be my thing. Now, so, John, since we started with you, when we started with your comment, I guess it's kind of fitting to end with you. So in this sort of a situation, what do you say?
Definitely, I agree with the desperate times call for desperate measures idea. If it is our last hope, and we have to, it's all or nothing right now. You might as well go all in and fight for your ability to live on this planet, because it's either fight and die on this planet, fight and live on this planet, or stay on our old planet and die no matter what.
Right. Yeah,
so, as long as there's a chance, I think we should take it.
Win big or die trying, that sort of thing.
Yep.
If you're gonna go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. This has been an amazing discussion. I think it's.
I had a really good time
yes.
talking.
No. Thanks for coming on with
John,
us.
thank you so much for coming on. I'll just
Thank you guys so much for having me. Honestly,
absolutely.
This is fun.
John,
Yeah.
our pleasure. We'd love to have you.
We
on
might
again.
invite you back.
Yeah, sometime in the future. Everybody, feel free to let us know. Do you want to see John back on? Even if you tell us no, too bad.
Does he get voted off the island?
We like him, so if we want him back on, we're having him back on. Too bad. But
if you say no, you have to say it to my face.
yeah, that's true.
Not in the YouTube comments.
That's not something you want to do to Big John. Let me tell you. But
that's the aggressive way of going about it. I take it.
Yeah. But,
so yeah.
I'll say, and a big part of course, why John is on is, well, he showed an interest. He expressed an interest to us. He let us know that he was interested in doing something with us, and he commented. He gave feedback. And so if this is something that you think you'd be interested in, I'm sure we could all say we've all been having a wonderful time, and now John got to come on to do an episode with us, and I'm sure he would tell you he had a wonderful time. So if this is something you'd be interested in, show us your interest, and we'd love to work with as many of you as possible.
Yes.
We really would.
We really would.
We really, really would.
Yeah. I think we've had a great time here. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and this show is no different. So thank you so much for joining us. For Connor, Deaglan, and John, again, thanks for coming on with us. I am Jimmy Sullivan. Thank you so much for listening to episode 4 of the Political Inaccuracy Podcast. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
I'm going to try to make this.